For the first time in almost half a century, longshoremen on the east and Gulf coasts have taken an unprecedented step, going on strike. This historic move, which began on Tuesday, threatens to disrupt some of the busiest ports in the United States, halting the flow of goods that power the economy. The International Longshoremen's Association, ILA, representing about 45,000 workers, made this decision after last-minute negotiations collapsed, making a work stoppage inevitable. As the union members set up their picket lines, the message was clear. Without them, America's trade will grind to a halt. Nothing moves without us. Absolutely nothing, declared Harold J. Daggett, the president of the ILA, in a video shared early Tuesday morning on the union's official Facebook page. His words, echoed by the determined workers around him, underscored the critical role they play in ensuring the smooth operation of the nation's ports. The strike has not only captured the attention of industry insiders, but has also raised concerns about the broader implications for the U.S. economy. From the price of everyday goods to potential delays in supply chains, the ripple effects of this work stoppage could be felt by millions across the country. Port employers, represented by the United States Maritime Alliance, have remained tight-lipped about the situation. However, it's clear that two key issues are at the heart of this dispute: the union's demand for wage increases and their resistance to the introduction of new technologies at the ports, which they argue could threaten jobs. This strike, if prolonged, could send shockwaves through various sectors of the economy, from retail to manufacturing. With no immediate resolution in sight, all eyes are on the negotiations as both sides grapple with what could be one of the most significant labor disputes in recent history. Will this be a short-lived conflict, or the beginning of a larger battle over the future of American labor in the shipping industry? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain: this strike marks a turning point in the ongoing conversation about workers' rights, automation, and the changing landscape of global trade. Businesses across the country are bracing for a period of uncertainty as the longshoremen strike unfolds. While trade experts suggest that a brief disruption may not leave lasting damage, the real concern lies in the potential for a prolonged stoppage. A strike lasting weeks could lead to widespread shortages, higher prices, and even layoffs, affecting industries far beyond the ports. J. Bruce Chan, a transportation analyst at Wall Street's Stifel firm, put it bluntly: when we're talking about a strike lasting 2 to 3 weeks, that's when the problem starts getting exponentially worse. The ripple effects of such a disruption could trigger chaos across supply chains, straining businesses and consumers alike. Adding to the stakes is the timing. With national elections just 5 weeks away, the strike presents a dilemma for President Biden. While he initially vowed not to invoke federal labor laws to end the port shutdown, something President George W. Bush did during a similar crisis in 2002, some labor experts believe that pressure may mount for him to intervene if the strike begins to inflict serious economic damage. The White House had already urged both parties to reach a deal before the strike erupted, but those efforts fell short. To understand the scope of the impact, consider the role longshoremen play in the U.S. economy. These workers are the backbone of America's ports, handling everything from offloading containers to sorting goods and putting them onto trucks or trains. They also manage bulk cargo, which means their work is essential to keeping the flow of goods moving. The East and Gulf Coast ports, where the strike is centered, handle about 60% of the nation's container shipments. Among the hardest hit will be key ports like New York and New Jersey, which is the third busiest port in the country. Other rapidly growing ports in Virginia, Georgia, and Texas are also at risk of major disruption. If the strike drags on, the broader economy could face a serious crunch, not just in terms of logistics, but also with potential job losses, price hikes, and weakened consumer confidence. The longer this strike lasts, the higher the stakes become for all players involved, from workers on the docks to shoppers in the stores. This strike could be a defining moment in America's labor landscape, with the potential to reshape the balance of power between employers, workers, and the role of government in future disputes. Will the strike be short-lived, or will it spiral into a full-blown crisis? The nation watches as the situation unfolds. The strike will also halt the shipment of cars and heavy machinery at the Port of Baltimore, which had already experienced disruptions earlier this spring when a container ship collided with the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Automakers have stated they are closely monitoring the situation, though it's still too soon to predict the full impact on their operations. Cruise ship operations remain unaffected by the strike, and military shipments will continue as planned. Rick Cotton, executive director of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, mentioned on Monday that approximately 100,000 containers would be stored at the port during the strike, with 35 incoming ships set to anchor offshore over the next week. The stakes are very high, Governor Kathy Hochul of New York stated during a news conference on Monday. She acknowledged the significant potential for disruption but reassured consumers that shortages of food and pharmaceutical products were not anticipated. When it comes to moving large quantities of goods in and out of the country, there's no viable alternative to ports. And since ports cannot function without longshoremen, the workers hold considerable leverage in labor negotiations. Meanwhile, West Coast ports remain open, as the longshoremen there, who belong to a different union, secured a new contract last year that included a substantial wage increase. Under the contract that expired on Monday, longshoremen on the East and Gulf Coasts earned a top wage of $39 per hour. The ILA, International Longshoremen's Association, is demanding a $5 per hour raise each year for the next 6 years, which would result in a total wage increase of 77% over the life of the new contract. Negotiations had been stalled for months, with little communication between the two sides until the walkout began. However, in the past few days, the United States Maritime Alliance stated that it had exchanged counteroffers with the ILA, particularly on wages, and had even proposed extending the previous contract. The alliance's most recent offer, according to them, would raise wages by nearly 50% over the course of the new contract. Despite this, the ILA issued a statement on Tuesday morning saying the offer fell far short of what its members were demanding. Many longshoremen, due to overtime and shift work, earn well over $100,000 annually, placing them ahead of many other workers without a college degree. However, they argue that they work significantly more hours than most, often in harsh or dangerous conditions, which justifies their demands for higher wages. The high inflation of recent years has eroded the purchasing power of longshoremen's wages. They argue that they deserve a share of the increased profits their employers, many of which are large, global shipping companies, earned during the pandemic-driven trade boom in 2021 and 2022. They want to make their billion-dollar profits at U.S. ports off the backs of American ILA longshore workers, and then take those earnings out of the country, said Harold J. Daggett, the president of the union, in a statement on Monday. Anticipating a potential strike, many companies rushed to bring in merchandise before Tuesday, especially durable consumer goods intended for the holiday sales season. However, even a brief strike could spell trouble for importers of perishable goods, like fruit, which are more vulnerable to delays. Daniel J. Barabino, chief operating officer of Top Banana, a fruit distributor based at the Hunts Point Produce Market in the Bronx, expressed concerns that the strike could leave him without bananas, his primary product, by the end of next week. It's going to affect everyone in the region, all the banana importers. No one's going to have fruit, he said. Barabino also mentioned that shipping fruit by air is prohibitively expensive, and he can't compensate for the shortfall by selling other types of produce. Other items might cover the coffee bill, or maybe the bottled water, but they're not going to pay the electric bill, the rent, truck leases, or employee salaries, he explained. The last time the ILA went on strike across all East and Gulf Coast ports was in 1977, causing significant disruption to container shipping for over 6 weeks. The deal that ended that strike included wage increases far beyond what employers had originally offered, boosted pension contributions, and measures to address the ILA's concerns about potential job losses from new technology. The ILA continues its fight against automation. In June, the union broke off negotiations with the Maritime Alliance, citing the use of unauthorized technology at a port in Mobile, Alabama, where trucks were being inspected with automated systems. However, a source familiar with the port's operations noted that the technology had been in place since the port opened in 2008. Under the expired contract, port operators were allowed to use semi-automated technology but not fully automated equipment, devoid of human interaction. During recent talks, the Maritime Alliance offered to carry that limitation into a new contract. Recently, several other unions have secured much of what they demanded during contract negotiations. And labor experts suggest that the ILA is looking to capitalize on this wave of successful labor agreements. The union has demonstrated its determination, said Harley Shaken, a professor emeritus at the University of California, Berkeley, who specializes in labor and trade. The Employers Association is fully aware that, in the current climate, strikes have proven successful for unions over the past year or so.